Hereby pronounce you Police Service Dog Yogi as a badge-carrying member of the Halifax Regional Police. Thank you for your continued dedication and service.
It was a special day for 4 good boys and girls from Halifax Regional Police's Canine Service. The pups received their badges and are formally recognized for their service and the role they play in the community, as well as their partnership with their handlers.
It's important that they get recognized for their roles too. They're working animals. Some might just think of them just as an animal, but they do have a very significant part to play with regards to the whole policing package. Our animals locate missing people, sometimes find key pieces of evidence.
We recognize that police put their lives on the line, but the dogs put their lives on the line every single day. And that badge represents the commitment, it represents the loyalty and just the dedication to the work.
Libby, Spirit, Yogi, and Goose are now officially part of Halifax Regional Police Canine Team and will serve alongside 5 other dogs for around the next 7 years. That is quite a commitment and an accomplishment.
Ron Mexico wants to know, why do you think Malaya is so silent, though? Is she introverted, or do you think she's being advised to keep quiet? Like, what are your thoughts there? If you can, if there's anything that you can't answer or you think will harm your case, don't answer.
I think if Malaya does speak out, I think that it will give me a lot of ammunition, and I can weaponize whatever she says due to contradictions that, and I know Malaya. I know Malaya fully well, so I can tell when, stuff is accurate or false, or my interpretations of things, and from past experiences and my own personal experience. So that may be something to do with it too, because she knows I'm so vocal. And if she talks, then I will proceed to talk after. But I'm not here to attack Malaya.
Yeah.
Or, be spiteful in any way. That's not the reason for today. I think if Malaya does speak out, I think that it will give me a lot of ammunition, and I can weaponize whatever she says.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome to everyone who I haven't had a chance to say hello to in the chat. So, yeah, not attacking whilst attacking. It's so ironic, isn't it? It's like, well, if she says something, I can weaponize it, but I don't want to attack her. And I wanted to play this because this was earlier in this whole conversation with Charmaine. And now we're getting to, I'm not sure if this was, because I put it all back to back, so I'm not sure if what I'm playing, the bit that I'm going to play today, I'm not sure if that's from the second time that he went up on panel with her or the first time. But that time around, he's going, well, I'd like to see Malaya come out and speak. So I thought I should probably play that bit first. Yeah, it'll give me ammunition. Like, it really, I was absolutely gobsmacked when I heard him say that. It was just shocking to hear that. I mean, both of them, I believe, are manipulative, but he's sometimes quite openly manipulative. Unbelievable. Now, I do want to backtrack a little bit. Those dogs that were graduating in Halifax, I believe that was in March this year. So that's actually a new bunch of graduate dogs in Halifax who have got their badges and are going to be doing their jobs. Dawn, I hope it is that they are just waiting on seeing this case against Daniel move on a bit further, see where that goes, because quite often you see that sort of thing coming. I do believe that they want to make sure that they have a rock solid case so that when they do make arrests, they're going to stick. just after 1 a.m. Well, thank you for coming in, Stickman. That's a very early time to be listening. I actually think that some of the things that he has said in these interviews, a good lawyer could use them in the case, in the abuse case, if depending on who the individual is, of course. I have to say that, of course, for legal reasons, because we know that we're not allowed to identify anybody, even though Daniel himself has actually, Daniel himself has pretty much identified who the victim is in comments. Good to see you in here, Woman's Warrior. I did send you an email. Women's Warrior has done a gorgeous song that I was hoping to play in one of my live streams, but I needed to just make sure that it's not a copyright thing before I can actually play it. If I can play it, I'd like to play it sometime later in this live stream. Yeah, good point. These are his words in public, so wonder what he's like in private. And is this part of the reason why Malaya doesn't speak? I mean, I'm not saying that she's innocent. Oh, cool. It's not copyright, so I can play it. I hope I did actually. I'm pretty certain I did transfer it onto this computer. There's just moments like that when Daniel gives himself away and he shows how controlling he is. And it really does make you think what he would be like in private. I don't agree with Malaya staying silent all this time, but I'm thinking I understand now why she has stayed silent. And I have actually said before, from very early on in the case, there were little comments that Daniel made that I thought were warnings for Malaya. And then when I hear him say that quite boldly, that he's going to weaponize anything she says, it certainly makes me think that she was warned early on that if she kept her mouth shut, it would be better for her. Because someone who is a master at coercive control can basically flip the script really easily. So even if he is the main culprit in this, and Malaya undoubtedly has involvement, you can guarantee anything she says, he will definitely weaponize it and flip it and make it sound like she's the person to blame. And people like that are so very good with the manipulation. People believe them. DG in an early live warned Hayley to keep her mouth shut. Yeah, it seems to be the way the men in that area work. I mean, the CPS thing, where he gives that description on DT's channel, and he makes it sound so innocent, and now he's changed it. Like, when he said it on DT, he specifically said that he went up behind her with the tablets and the mail and put them in the trunk of the car, meaning he didn't warn her he was coming. He just basically came up behind, got in her space. Now, that is a classic tactic that is used by someone who is accustomed to coercive control. someone who is a narcissist, who has lost control. He did that to reassert his control and to remind her that he's still in control. So I think it really does make the case complicated. I do think, and I'm not, and I have to keep repeating this, I'm not excusing Malaya for her part in this. But at the same time, when I hear him say a comment like, I can weaponize whatever she says, I understand why she's staying silent. Because she already knows this. She lived it for 2, 3 years. I can't remember how long they were together. Must have been close to 3 years. She lived what he's saying here. So she would have known from the day that she left the property that anything she said was going to be weaponized and turned against her. So on that side of things, I can't blame her for staying silent. Yes, and also his best friend of 20 years has an arsenal of weapons. Although many of those weapons, they don't have like the pins and things. Most of them are collector's items that were handed down from his grandfather. So yeah, that was kind of blown up a bit. And I think when he goes to court again, I hope he's got a good lawyer that does make the point of the fact that many of those weapons, even though they are clearly illegal, are not in working order. They were, collector's items that were inherited. It doesn't make them legal, but it may mean that it may be considered mitigating circumstances when it comes to deciding how long he's going to be locked away for. That said, the bows, there was a automatic bow, which is basically a one-handed bow, which is illegal. And that wasn't, clearly that was in working order because you can't disarm one of them. But more to the point of some of the antique poo-poos that he has, those sort of things, that will be considered mitigating circumstances. But I think when you look at the picture that we saw that was published by RCMP, there's enough things in there, regardless of whether or not the pins have been removed on the weapons, that are still, I think, going to make him see not a short jail time. Yeah, you can't have a slingshot over here. But apparently, because I thought, thinking along the lines of Australian laws, I thought that those bows were illegal, but I looked it up. And in Canada, you can actually have a bow. I guess it's for hunting purposes, so long as it requires 2 hands to be used. There was the shooting of a police officer in Montreal. Wow. Well, then he's not going to do well in court then, because the Crown is going to go very hard now on weapons offences. I hadn't even caught that news. I was so busy yesterday, I kind of didn't check anything online. But wow. Yeah, so, yeah, sure, mitigating circumstances that the pins have been removed and a lot of those weapons are just kind of, display only. But there was a magazine for a automatic rifle there. There were silencers. And there was a one-handed bow, like an automatic bow. Those things alone could probably get a hefty prison sentence. So I wouldn't want to be in his shoes, let's put it that way. But yeah, going back to Malaya, I think it's clear that she has lied. And when we hear things that, yeah, crossbow, that's the word. God, my brain. When we hear the things that Malaya said, she's definitely lied. She's definitely trying to act like she knows nothing. But at the same time, yeah, she's still knee-deep in this, essentially. But I do have questions about that 8:30 phone call, about the attempt to ring Cindy at 8:30. I do have questions about why Janie and Daniel show resentment over Malaya ringing 911. So I think it's a very complicated situation. And I think that if Malaya does end up being arrested and prosecuted, and I believe that she should, but I do suspect that there will be things that a lawyer could bring forward as mitigating circumstances because of the coercive control. Yeah, we have only got that one interview. After I finish going through this Daniel conversation with Charmaine, I might dig out the statement that she did last year for Please Bring Me Home, because I never really dug into that. And I might look at that, because there were some things that stood out with me for that. Hemi says bows and crossbows have no restrictions in Canada. A few of the guns were homemade. That's a big no-no. I didn't spot that some of the guns were homemade. I'm not good with weapons. I'm not familiar. When I looked up the laws for bows and crossbows, it does say that for crossbows, they have to be ones that are operated with two hands. So like an automatic one, like you could see on the far right of the image, apparently that's illegal in Canada because you would be operating it with one hand. Yeah, if there are homemade guns there, that's a huge no-no. I think there were fishing spears. I would imagine that fishing spears are not limited, not restricted in any way. I don't know. There's a heck of a lot of water in Nova Scotia, a lot of fishing areas, so I'd be curious to know about that. I mean, fishing spears aren't restricted here in Australia, are they? I know a lot of people who go spear fishing. Spring-loaded. You have a family member that hunts with a crossbow that uses one hand, called spring-loaded. Yeah. I mean, it could be that it is a commonplace thing and people don't realise they're illegal. I know that in terms of people going out shooting in Australia, in some states, spotlighting is illegal, which means, going out at night time and using a light when you go shooting, when you go hunting. And yet in some areas, that's what a lot of people in regional areas do. They go spotlighting. And if you actually look up the laws in Australia, it's illegal in certain states. And I don't think these people even realise that or if they do, they just do it anyway. With the exception of Lily and Jack, does it occur to you that most of those report children have unusual names? Yes, we do have a lot of children with unusual names. Summer, etc. Kylie spelt with a I-E-I-E. I can't even think it unless I spell it. Fishing equipment is strictly regulated for sport fishermen, same as hunting. Cool. Yeah, Bonza, I think I would imagine you'd be hard-pressed to see a country cop who's going to actually take action on anyone spotlighting. Because for people who've grown up in the country, it's just the norm. And same with so this is the thing with Josie Murray and her weapons charges. Yes, she had the guns all locked up and everything, but she's lucky that she's not one of these country folk that has shotguns that are like, really heavy, loud ones. And that's the thing, Bonza. I think most people, if they're going to go out spotlighting, they always do it on private property. So the police just don't. Police look the other way. I, had an incident many, many, many years ago where someone was out spotlighting, but they were shining the spotlight right across my property. And they kept doing it. So I contacted the local cops and they just basically said, look, don't shine it across the property. Stickman, I didn't answer your question. I didn't see your question. This one, with the exception of Lily and Jack, does it occur to you that most of these report missing children have unusual names? Yeah, it does. I did comment on that it does. A lot of them do. Yeah, we're not supposed to here in Australia, but it is for people that live in regional areas. It's almost like a country sport. It's not uncommon at all. And even people that live in suburbs, if they've got friends that live in a country area, may head out there and go spotlighting. In terms of baiting, I think Australia is a bit too lax when it comes to baiting. Indigenous people still have their own regulations. Is that only on reserves? I think, now I should know this, but I do believe I do believe that there are some adjustments for Aborigines in Australia too, but I'm not sure. And that's the thing, Bonza, if you are culling roos or boars, spotlighting is the best time because it makes them, it stuns them essentially. Trying to word it in a way that isn't going to be too confronting, but yeah. As Indigenous people, you still have your own regulations. As in, there are allowances within reserves, which give you slightly different regulations to people outside of reserves, or regulations that are pretty much the same as outside of reserves. Because that's the thing I'm curious about. Welcome in, Joyce. It's good to see you here. Yeah, Aboriginals can hunt what they want when they want. They hunt to eat, not for sport. Yep. Yeah, we do hunt kangaroo. We hunt emus. A kangaroo can have a joey just out of the pouch and another one just in the pouch. Kangaroos, if we don't keep on top of the population of kangaroos, then we end up being overrun with roo, and there's that they end up starving because there isn't enough feed for them. So periodically, there will be culls of roos in areas, but also, people in the country ever since people have been in Australia have had roo meat. Roo meat's nice. Like roo burgers and patties are kind of nice. I haven't had it in years, so I couldn't describe it really, but it is nice. I've tried emu. It didn't really do anything for me. Yeah, the Great Emu War. They didn't actually fight back. It was more about emus can get up a massive speed. When emus get moving, they can move. And basically, this whole notion of the Great Emu War, it really wasn't quite that. It was a case of they were trying to cull the emus, and the people they had that were going in. Hang on, let me have a sip. Sorry about that. I was losing my voice. They were trying to cull the emus, but the men that were doing it had kind of useless weapons and weren't used to trying to shoot a moving target. So it was just a dismal failure because they were just incapable. If its back faces the sky when it walks, you can eat it. Not so much. There's a few that I wouldn't agree with on that, but good to see some new people coming in here. Welcome in, people. Let's get on with talking about Daniel, because I could give you lots of information about eating roos and eating emus and crocodile and stuff like that, but probably should get on with some actual content. So let me change onto this. So having just played all that stuff earlier about Malaya, the first thing that comes up in the audio is Daniel saying that he hopes Malaya will get the courage to speak up one day.
Hereby pronounce you.
Oh,
Please serve as.
sorry, got to change it over.
I just want everybody to know that, I'm always doing my best and staying strong for Lily and Jack. And I hope one day that, Malaya will get the courage to speak up for Lily and Jack. And I don't hold my breath on that, but I do hope that, she does that. Maybe she can go on Shenanigans podcast and they throw her some softball questions and maybe she'll be willing to answer a spot where she feels more comfortable. But
Yeah, emus scare me. I don't like emus. They are aggressive mothers. I won't finish that term, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm getting to the point where I'm triggered just by listening to Daniel. I got so triggered going through that audio of him on Sunny's channel because of a lot of what he was saying. In terms of that, I think if I do go through it, I think there are bits that I'm going to leave out because they just make me want to gag. But yeah, it's like it's half a dozen of one, 6 of the other, isn't it? It's like got to listen to it to understand what's going on with this case, but at the same time, it just gets my hackles up. Yeah, barbecue meat. Oh, barbecue roux sausage, roux patties, absolutely delicious. Welcome in everyone else who's coming in. I think I've kind of greeted everyone. Lots of extra names here that I'm seeing that I haven't seen before, so good stuff. Oh yeah, I really look forward to the day when there is justice for Lily and Jack. And I'm so worried that they'll never get found. That's my biggest concern. I'm just looking at my ticker thing on the bottom, and I just remembered, and I need to mention this. Sorry, I should have mentioned this at the start. I don't know if you guys get a notification just as someone who is a subscriber, but it wouldn't surprise me if YouTube is just going to do this as a sneaky in the background and not tell you. So I keep getting these messages in my YouTube studio saying that I need to review membership prices. And it's telling me that it's going to be changing membership prices to make them fairer across the board or something. Now, it seems like in Australia, nothing is changing. The membership prices are staying the same. Stickman, I agree. Him and Don Wells are definitely beyond exemption. 100%. Now, in terms of these membership prices, it actually is a bit of a dirty from YouTube, if you ask me, because what they're doing, a lot of them are staying the same. So, like all in Australia, if you're Australian, your membership stays the same. If you're in America, your membership stays the same unless you are on the $4.99 tier, which I don't think anyone is, and that gets cheaper. But for some reason, if you are in New Zealand and you've got the 99-cent membership, that's going up to $1.99 for some reason. if you're in the UK and you've got the £4.99, I don't know how to say that properly, that's going down. But if you are in Canada, YouTube's decided to put memberships up. So I need to warn Canadian people who are members, because if you're on the 99-cent tier, it's going up to $1.49. And if you're on the $1.99 tier, it's going up to $2.99. There's no explanation there as to why that's being raised. They don't say, they're trying to say that they're making it fairer across the board. But it seems to me like the target is Canadian members, because it's got Canada goes from 99 cents to 1.49 and 1.99 to 2.99. No idea why. All I'm going to say in terms of that is, if you are in Canada and you have a membership and you are supporting me with the membership just for support and not so much about the members' videos and stuff, my Patreon, even though UK has gone up as well, has it? Oh, nice. They're good, aren't they? Just slide that through. If you are doing memberships just to support my channel and you're not interested in like the members' videos and stuff, my Patreon is free, but there are $1 and $2 tiers on my Patreon. So if YouTube is putting your membership up, and you can always go down a tier, so you can always go into your membership settings and you can always choose a lower tier. But the other option for you, if you're just wanting to support my channel, is to go and cancel your membership on YouTube and go and do a Patreon membership, which you can do for like 99 cents or $1 or something. So that's, that's the thing, Karen. It's part of the economic war between the US and the rest of the world. It's blatantly obvious when they target Canadians. I was quite surprised to see that. I actually didn't check it for a few days because I thought, well, I didn't actually cotton on to what was going on. But then I checked it this morning and I'm like, wow. Anyway, now I missed something. Welcome in, BTTV. Oh, fresh garden veggies are the best, definitely. I missed a few comments while I was talking. I see why people were stirring BTTV. Okay. Yeah, I do benefit from the increases, but at the same time, it's a bit of a dirty move by YouTube, especially when they say that they're doing it to, yeah, we all know what BTTV likes now. Yeah, it seems like a dirty move though. Like, I do benefit from the increases, but that's never been what it's been about for me. And, as I'm sure everywhere is seeing the same as what we're seeing here. I caught your typo before you deleted it. I've noticed grocery prices here have gone up. Grocery prices are going up everywhere. So it's a bit of a dirty move, in my opinion. And I probably shouldn't say too much about that because I might get black banned by or shadow banned, and then you won't be able to find my videos. So let's keep going with Daniel. So yeah, him going, well, hopefully Malaya will get the courage to speak. This is in the same conversation, but earlier on he was saying if Malaya speaks, I'm going to weaponize it. He's unreal. And then well, maybe she can go on Shenanigans podcast and throw her some softball questions that she'll be willing to answer. This is him pretending to care. This is him putting on the impression of, yes, I'm so sensitive to Malaya's needs. It's an act. Because basically, he's probably quite happy right now that Malaya is staying silent. Yes, only a few weeks till Daniel goes to court. That is definitely going to be interesting. What else does he weaponize? Probably a lot. I think he's a master when it comes to coercive control. I think he has all the narcissistic strategies down pat, just based on everything we've heard from him in the last 13, 14 months. Yeah, anytime we get a little bit of raise, it's because something else has gone up. That's the thing. And the Victorian government just are so out of touch with it. They do these, hey, look at this initiative that we've brought in because of the increased cost of living. But it's not addressing the main issues. It's just this political stunt at the end of the day. Yeah, muggy weather. I saw that. I saw that they were warning people to make sure they keep hydrated and stuff like that. I think they were saying in France the temperature got up to like 40 degrees or something like that. There was a news story. Someone in France left 2 children in a vehicle in 40 degrees heat and the children died. So yeah, it does sound like up in the UK, all up around there, is really being hit with the heat at the moment. Okay, so still Daniel going on about Malaya. Let's hear some more.
For that, I mean, that we can all just dream, I guess. But hopefully it comes to a reality one day.
I'd like to say about the past tense thing, I don't think it's a slip or a Freudian slip or anything like that. It is past tense. The information and the memories that you have are in past tense. And I think that to me, I'm no professional, but I think it's perfectly normal.
I disagree with Charmaine on this. I know she's probably just trying to make Daniel feel comfortable. But no, it is not a normal thing. It is not perfectly normal. And saying that, he's sharing memories that are in the past and information that is in the past. No, because if you believe that a child is still alive, then the things they like are not going to be in the past. The things they like are still going to be present. So if you still believe that Jack was alive, you'd be saying he likes worms and bugs. But even in the early interviews, Daniel was using past tense. Yeah, people do need to stop coddling Daniel. I understand wanting to make him feel comfortable doing an interview on your channel, but turning around and dismissing him speaking in past tense, that's something where in that situation I would have just kept quiet. I think Charmaine did great getting this conversation for us. And she did get a lot of good answers. But there's a few times when I think, oh, probably shouldn't have said that. Just my opinion. No shade on Charmaine. Everyone's different. I wouldn't even be able to do it. So, there's that.
Thank you, Daniel. Is there anything at all that we didn't talk about? I know there's a ton of questions that I didn't get to, and I apologize, everybody. I will send them to him. But is there anything that we didn't touch on today, Daniel, that you want to say?
Yes, there is. And I said this at the very end of every single interview I ever said, and it got cut out every single time. I want everybody who has any information, who has any valid tips, send them into Major Crimes, the RCMP, or Crime Stoppers. If you have anything, don't ever hide it. Don't ever try to conceal it or spread it online. Bring it straight to the authorities so they can handle it properly. So we have the best chance of finding Lily and Jack.
This guy, honestly, I wish I could say what I would like to say. But because it's YouTube, I can't really say it. But this BS, well, I've said this at the end of every single interview, and it got cut out. He does sound wasted. When you listen to the start of this conversation and then you hear the end of it, he has definitely got wasted throughout the interview. Yeah, he's not holding up pictures or asking for interviews or asking for rewards or anything. He's just full of crap. And just a reminder for Daniel and for anyone else who may have forgotten, there was that interview in the first week or so where the reporter had to remind him he was like, oh, and the message is still the same. And you could see that moment pause with Daniel going, what message? And then he's like, oh, anyone who's got any information, blah, blah, blah. He had to be prompted. We've had one of the interviews that he did with, I think Angela, possibly. It was either Angela or Kayla. And whoever it was that was interviewing said to him, now, is this something that you really want the public to know? And he said, yes, I want them to know that the children were seen on camera because basically people are making accusations about the children having gone missing a few days earlier. So this is complete utter BS. And there's no way that if he was actually genuinely making pleas for the children, there's no way the media would not play that. That's what you would refer to as the money shot, or what Jared Lysek refers to as the money shot. You get a better audience, mainstream media, they get a better audience if they can show someone looking vulnerable, someone showing emotion, someone making pleas. He's so full of crap. Yeah, that I should have actually sort of preempted this and put together those clips that I'm just talking about. But it was one of the very, very early clips. And the reporter basically had to prompt him and say, and the message is still the same? And there's this pause and he's like, oh, yeah. And then he does the whole spiel. You never hear him saying anything about wanting Lily and Jack to be found. At all. He's only saying that in response to the fact that people have pointed it out. And it's so hollow. He still is not, and someone made a comment up here which I should have pinned, but I also wanted to come back to this one about Jack. He's still really not pleading here. Because as someone said, he says that he believes they're still alive. Well, why is he not pleading for someone to bring them back? Or if anyone has seen them. But it's not. It's, I want everybody who has information or valid tips. Because he wants to make sure that people aren't actually putting in tips about him. So he likes this idea of valid tips because it creates doubt in people's minds as to whether their tips are worthwhile. So by pushing this, they need to be valid tips. It basically, he's hoping that it will create enough doubt in people's minds to prevent them from putting tips in against him. Yeah, no, he doesn't watch YouTube, so he doesn't know what's being said. That is so correct. And like, you know, send them to major crimes, RCMP, Crime Stoppers, if you have anything. And then he makes this bizarre comment, which you will never hear from someone who is not involved. Because unless you are someone who's going to think to hide information, you're not going to think that anyone is going to hide information. So him saying if you have anything, don't ever hide it. Don't ever try to conceal it. You're never ever going to hear that from someone who is innocent. Because it would never in a million years occur to them that someone having information about a missing child would actually hold that information back. So that is so revealing right there. He might as well just scream guilt just with those two sentences. Don't ever hide it. Don't try to conceal it. I've never ever heard an innocent parent say that. The closest I've ever heard is when Kylie Rodney was missing and the teens weren't coming forward with information. And her mother came out and said, we don't care if you were doing rugs at the party. We just want you to come out and help us find Kylie. That's actually very, very different from Daniel saying, don't ever hide it, don't try to conceal it. That's her acknowledging that some children or some teens weren't going forward because they were doing illegal things. And that's her saying, don't be afraid to come forward because we don't care about that. That's very, very different from what he's doing here. Because Nobody thinks this way. And then, bring it straight to the authorities so they can handle it properly. None of it is worded the right way. It's not, contact RCMP immediately, because that could be the thing that helps us find Lily and Jack. It's about so they can handle it properly. So it's not even, it's very, very vague. And so we can have the best chance of finding Lily and Jack. Again, the best chance of, meaning he's not saying that he wants Lily and Jack found. Saying so we can have the best chance is, yeah, Rob and I saw that, and I'm going to get to that in half a moment. Saying so we can have the best chance, again, that's showing that he doesn't want Lily and Jack found. He's just talking the talk. Because nobody who genuinely cares about these children and who don't know what happened are going to be talking about the best chance of them being found. They're going to talk about wanting them to be found. So this one speech that he's made here, he's given himself away in so many different ways. Yes, Robin, I agree. Now, we'll have to, someone remind me about the worms and bugs thing to come back to, because I do want to comment on this, and I agree with you. He was visibly relieved when they announced the search was over. I don't know if that means that they're in the woods, though, because I believe that they are on private property in the area. So I think for him, being relieved that the search was over was probably more about relief that they weren't going to extend the search out from where they had looked. Could be wrong, because what you're saying also makes a lot of sense. So it could be either way. What do they do with smashed cars out there? Well, Daniel claims that he sent it off to be crushed. One thing about that story about sending his car off to be crushed, which I think is important to point out, because I know that a lot of people got upset when he said that. But there's a process. Any place that has to crush the cars, and I'll come to that too. There's a process. So when a car is taken to be scrapped, first of all, there has to be a transfer of ownership done. Paperwork has to be done. So the company that's going to crush the car, they actually have to put in paperwork with the like the transport, whatever it's called in Canada, I can't remember now. So they have to put in paperwork saying that they've transferred the ownership of the car. But not only that, before they can actually scrap it, before they can crush it, they have to remove things like anything that's toxic. So fuel tanks, they're supposed to remove removable glass, so windscreens and stuff. They're supposed to remove batteries. There's a whole list of things that they're supposed to remove before they crush the car. Ministry of Transportation. Cool, thank you. Then they can crush the car after all that's been done. So in terms of Daniel's car being sent to be crushed, I would be pretty certain that RCMP have got it set up that if any vehicles owned by Daniel, Malaya or Jamie come up in the system as changing hands, that would be flagged to the Major Crimes Unit. So if his car had been taken to be crushed, I would almost guarantee that it would have been flagged up with the Major Crimes Unit and not been crushed, in my opinion. Once crushed, they either go for scrap metal or there is a place in, I think in Nova Scotia, I can't remember, it's a while since I did all this research. There's a place that actually shreds the crushed vehicles and then compacts them even more. I believe that's Nova Scotia, but like I said, it's weeks and weeks since I did that research, so I can't remember. Could just be in Canada, but I do think there is a place in Nova Scotia that basically, like putting them through a paper shredder, but a paper shredder for vehicles. And it basically shreds them and compacts them down into even tighter blocks of metal. So that's what happens. Yes, that's the only concern, because there seem to be plenty of connections within that area in terms of people who work in the kind of that industry. That's the only concern there. But, you know, let's hope that's not quite the full situation. I think you could bury a car with a small skid front loader. So true. And there's also plenty of people connected to Daniel that have access to those sort of things. But he does claim that the vehicle was sent to be crushed. But I also wonder if that was just to get people riled up. Yeah, scrapyards have CCTV cameras and they do have records. I mean, you know, saying that, you know, it could be scrapped off the books. At the same time, it depends if that's a regular thing for someone, because you'd think a lot of people wouldn't want to lose their license for doing something like that. Yes, they do bury shipping containers. There was a case about 15, 20 years ago of a guy who had buried a shipping container, made it look like from the road, it would have looked like just a hill. But if you went downhill, you could see the doors for the shipping container. And he had this major hydroponic setup inside the shipping container. He got caught and got charged and everything. But yeah, people do bury shipping containers and things. Yeah, they are supposed to report the VIN numbers. They're also supposed to do a transfer of ownership of the vehicle. Good point, Karen. Wonder if the vehicle was ever even registered and insured. Definitely. Because you also get that in a lot of those country areas, those sort of out of the populous area kind of places where people do have vehicles that they run around the area in that aren't necessarily registered. Oh, I'm not sure why you haven't been receiving my notifications. I think there's a few people haven't been receiving my notifications. I definitely have noticed that. YouTube does that sometimes. I know that what people can do to help me out in terms of YouTube not putting out notifications is anytime you're listening to my content, if you can try and hit the like button for me. And also, if you're listening on replay or if you're listening to a video, leaving comments also helps remind YouTube that people want to listen to my content. Sometimes YouTube does this where they just kind of forget to tell people that a person is going live or that they've dropped videos or something. So I don't know. I've heard other people say that sometimes it's worth like changing your notifications and then yeah, I don't know. There's things you can do, I think. Like you can unsubscribe and resubscribe. I think you can change the settings on the bell and then change them back. But yeah, I know there's a few people that aren't getting notifications. There's a lot of people not getting notifications. Wow, BTTV, you're still not able to comment on my shorts? I've heard that from other people since as well. Yeah. It's I won't share my personal opinion on here, but Karen, I think you're kind of along those lines. I think we're just talking Commonwealth countries, not just Canada. But then again, yeah, YouTube just sometimes just seems to go through phases. So the other thing they do is, and this has been happening to me a bit lately, and I keep forgetting to check because it's been so long, is I'll upload a video and I'll go back in like an hour or so later and think, wow, nobody's commented. Like, did I miss the point? Did I not get the message through very clearly? And then I check and I find that the comments have been turned off. So there's all these glitches in YouTube that just seem to come back on content creators and hit them in the ass sometimes, basically. Need another sip. Wow. My voice is clearly a bit rusty right now. Maybe it's all the extra videos I've been doing. Just reading people's comments. So, BTTV, you still can't comment on any of my shorts, but you can on videos and live streams. That's unreal. I've had other people come back and say that they couldn't comment on my shorts. Yes, you tend to see when this starts happening, it means that they're playing around with the algorithm again. And it's kind of one of those things that you've just got to wait it out. Still the same way, BTTV. Yeah, I do need like a spoonful of honey or something. I guess the cold weather probably doesn't help. I almost never lose my voice. I mean, this is coming from someone with a background of classical voice training, so it's not something that generally occurs for me. But I'm thinking probably the cold weather is affecting me. That's all I can think. Anyway, let's get back to a bit more of this Daniel thing. I think now it moves on to, hang on, I'm just trying to look. At some point here in the audio, it does move on to the second discussion with Charmaine, but I don't seem to have differentiated. So somewhere along the line, it does switch over to the second one. Now I'm glitching, yeah. Manuka and lemon in tea. Yeah, I love lemon and honey. Love it so much. Nice, strong tea, bit of lemon, bit of honey. Perfect.
I believe, the public is the key here, because I just don't know what happened. I don't know if Malaya knows. I don't know.
Squirrel, definitely. Of course, Daniel, you don't know what happened. And notice how he says, I don't know if Malaya knows. Because he knows that the thing that people keep coming back to, I think I saw a mouse come through. He knows that the thing that people keep coming back to is someone on the property has to know something. So if he's saying he doesn't know anything, then he wants people to basically look directly at Malaya. The public is key here. Yeah, exactly. The public is key here because he doesn't know what happened. He's trying to make it sound like he's, I have nothing to do with it. I've got no idea. I've been throwing out all these accusations against Malaya for the last 13, 14 months, but I've got no idea, because now I'm not allowed to make these accusations against Malaya. So now I'm kind of in a pickle as to how I can present my innocence. That's where he's coming from right now. Because you'll notice he's kind of backed off a bit. I do agree with you. I think he is trying to get Malaya's attention. I think when he realised that she was talking with shenanigans, I think that made him very nervous. Her suddenly appearing on the search, I think that made him very nervous. I believe the only reason he came out on Charmaine's channel and then on Sunny's channel was to make sure that he was still in control. To make sure that Malaya knew that he wasn't going anywhere. So I do agree with you. Yeah, exactly. It's Daniel logic. If he knew what happened, the public wouldn't be the key. The public is key, therefore, because he doesn't know what happened. Daniel logic. Total Daniel logic. But the thing is, when you look at it logically, the three people on that property know. It's not a big property. It's not like some rural property where you have one house at the entrance to the property and another house a kilometre away. You have Janie who says she can hear everything in that RV. So, yes, they all know what happened. Yeah, that's the thing. He's worked very, very hard to keep Malaya quiet over the last year. And he was quite happy with the public opinion of Cheryl. Because Cheryl didn't make herself look popular. And it didn't help the situation that the first thing we heard from Malaya after she went missing was when Cheryl came out about the GoFundMe and said that Malaya wanted that money put in a trust fund and in Cheryl's name or something. So for Daniel, that was wonderful, because it meant that the one person who was speaking out for Malaya was not a popular person. But then all of a sudden, you get this content creator who's best buddies with Malaya and having sleepovers with Malaya, and Daniel feels threatened by that. I think he feels misunderstood, but he's not being honest about what we're misunderstanding. Spot on. Can't understand why they keep coming back to YouTube. Public opinion means nothing. Why keep risking it if you've done nothing wrong? And that's the thing. Someone made a comment in yesterday's live that it's like they believe that the case is going to be decided by the public. They're so desperate to convince the public. But what they don't realise is that every time they come out on a live stream, every time they comment on someone's video or in a chat, that is something that is going to be admissible in court. Daniel has given so much here, not just in his interviews with mainstream media, but between his conversation with the turkey guy, with Charmaine, and then the 9-hour thing with Sunny. That is going to come out in court. But I think he's so convinced that he is smarter than the major crimes unit and that they're never going to actually make arrests. So for him, it's about public opinion. It's just ridiculous. And Janie, she really should not have come back out again after her little tour in July, because all that stuff that she said back in July, she threw Daniel under the bus so much. She leaks truths so much. And I've said this before, she's the weakest link. But, I mean, it's gold. They're both the gift that keeps giving. Yeah, I agree. Making all these interviews could definitely be his undoing. In fact, it will definitely be his undoing. Because you can bet that RCMP have got their analysts listening to every single thing that Daniel says. He also thinks he's smarter than a couple of thousand YouTubers as well. That is for sure. Yeah, narcissists have an ingrained need to appear to not be what they are in the public eye. Once you've suffered at the hand of a narcissist, you realise what's up. First time I heard Daniel or saw Daniel speaking on an interview, I had him pegged. And he's just shown himself more and more in the last 13, 14 months. 100%. That court case, we're not going to hear a lot of the details. I mean, it sounds like they weren't even letting public into the courtroom. That said, I think there will be certain media outlets that will be fighting for information with that. So we just have to keep our fingers crossed that they keep pushing for information with that case. Yes, it could be that. It's interesting, when I was going through the Sunny audio, and he was making this accusation that all these people that have come out on Malaya's side, which it sort of appears that way until you look at the way they've come out. Durwood came out and he's like, well, I'm Paddy's cousin. But he came out in defence of Daniel and Janie until they had a falling out. And you have this crazy Anita woman who, now obviously everything she's saying is just basic BS that's coming from her watching YouTube, listening to what's being said on Facebook, and then making it her own story. But again, she's someone who is connected with Cindy and Wade, and yet she's bending over backwards to make them look like guilty parties. Well, when she first appeared, Durwood was coming out and saying he was telling people she was this wonderful person. So, I mean, part of me thinks like these people are too dumb for that. But another part of me thinks, is this an attempt to create doubt before it even goes to trial? I really hope that a lot of these people that have been coming out with stories are going to be charged with obstruction when arrests are made. A lot of what he's saying, typing online, is not admissible in Canadian courts because it would be considered hearsay unless offered for truth. Yes, in terms of, anything he says, they're not going to treat it as truthful. He's proven himself not to be truthful, but it can still be used against him in court because it can be used to demonstrate to a jury how much he has tried to steer the narrative. So in terms of him coming out, changing the story, in terms of him constantly trying to put attention on Malaya, in terms of some of the outright lies, which RCMP can clearly prove are outright lies, they're things that can be used in court to prove that he was going out of his way to try and control the narrative, to try and convince people of his innocence. Yeah, he'll just say, so long ago, I can't remember. They'll nail him. No matter what he says, they'll nail him. And the thing is, too, when you look at the interview, the last mainstream media interview that he did, he was clearly on drugs that day. So they would be able to just show things like that as well. A judge won't allow it as evidence because it would be too easy to cross-examine. No, not really. Because if they're showing like a clip of Daniel saying, I did these blood tests and I ticked a box that said no criminal involvement, you wouldn't be able to cross-examine that, because all RCMP would have to do to show that that is an outright lie would be to present that document in court. So it's things like that that will bury him. And it's things like comments like, I know for 100% that the children aren't on the property, or that the dogs won't find anything. Those sort of things, a jury hearing those are certainly going to be questioning his involvement. So it's those sort of things. It's not necessarily all these different stories that he comes up with. It's the incidental things like that. The times when he conveys something that has allegedly been told to him by RCMP, and they can prove that that wasn't said. No, Canada doesn't stream trials. You can guarantee it's going to be really, really hard for us to get all the details. I think this is going to be something that is going to be very hard for us to catch the information on. Janie's slip out up about them driving at night. Yeah, that was a doozy, wasn't it? That really was. It will be closed court proceedings. 100%. I think what we've got to bear in mind here with Lily and Jack is that it definitely appears that CPS dropped the ball. We know that their file went all the way up to the minister at the top. So when arrests are made, when the case goes to court, they're going to work their hardest to make sure the public doesn't know everything that is in that case. The media is going to have to fight really, really hard to make as much as possible public, in my opinion. A few social workers resigned too. I hadn't heard about that. It's usually the way when these organisations, something goes wrong and it suddenly becomes known that something went wrong, you suddenly get staff resigning, whether they've done so by choice or whether it's been suggested to them that they do so. You can tell when you see an organisation clean house, then you know there's been some sort of big screw up or some sort of cover up. So if that's the case, yeah. Yeah, Daniel is a gift that keeps giving. That is for sure. Yes, Jeannie, I think it will definitely be sketch artist and reporter feedback. This case is going to be very heavily guarded. It's, yeah, not going to be anything like American cases where you just jump on court TV and watch the whole thing.
It's been 1 year. That's why I'm not throwing out theories or speculation at this point, because I just
Hang on, I'll run that back a little bit.
I don't know. It's been 1 year. That's why I'm not throwing out theories or speculation at this point, because I just don't know. But I want anyone who has any credible tips or any information to just go even to your local law enforcement attachment, and they'll send it to Major Crimes. And I think that's the best chance we have of finding Lily Jack at this point. And I want, I said that at the end of every interview, and it always got cut out.
Okay, I've gone back way too far.
And I've done a lot of interviews, and I never did those for myself. I always did those for Lily and Jack, and I did those for investigators, so they'd have a chance at finding the kids, because that's what it always is. And I want to appreciate everybody I appreciate everyone who has a big heart, even the people that hate me. Because if they hate me, that means they have a big heart and they care about the kids.
Just going to pause it there. So again, he's trying to say, this is just like, honestly, the guy could almost be a politician. He's just, it's laughable. He's playing a role here. He's saying what he believes he's supposed to say. But it's just him playing a role, purely and simply. Now, this thing that he's saying in terms of, I'm just trying to find it in the transcript, about people having a big heart and everything. Yes, a lot of us do really, really dislike Daniel, and a lot of us do have big hearts. But I think there's a differentiation that needs to be made there too. Because, yes, there are people who have big hearts that do perhaps hate him or really dislike him. But I think we need to separate that from the people who are actively harassing him, actively threatening him. Because to me, that's not coming from someone who has a big heart. I know people get riled up, but I do feel that it crosses the line. But yes, I think a lot of people have big hearts, and they dislike you, Daniel, because they see through your lies. Now, I mean, it's been beneficial for the case that he's continued talking, because the last thing we had was January, when we had the last lot of lifted redactions. And without these additional interviews, we probably wouldn't be still talking about Lily and Jack right now. But I think I just wanted to make that differentiation, because I see this so often with cases. I see the people who genuinely care, the people who have a big heart. And yes, they do resent, they even hate the people that they believe are involved. But when it starts, yeah, exactly, vigilantism, when it becomes vigilante justice, that's not coming from a place of a big heart, in my opinion. Yeah, Grover, I honestly thought that back in January after that we wouldn't hear from him again. I think we only did because of Malaya showing up on the search. Yeah, this getting to know the real Daniel. We have got to know the real Daniel, and that's why we don't like him. Like, but again, priorities. So, I'm just trying to find this in the transcript too. He did this for Lily and Jack and for the investigators so they'd have a chance of finding the kids. Notice how when he talks about them actually finding Lily and Jack, he doesn't use their names. It's a distancing language because he does not want investigators to find Lily and Jack. Which one? The original one or the one after he broke the mirror and tried putting it back? Yeah. He does think highly of himself. Yep. That is the thing. And he thinks people forget that. He's not their parent. And he's shown that it's not a priority for them. Lily and Jack were never a priority for Daniel. Yeah. He goes on, if he knows something's coming down the line, or in this case, it was Malaya coming out. So I would agree. We're probably going to hear from him again just before he goes to court. And if court is just like another mention, or if there's another delay, we'll probably hear from him again. Oh, look, honestly, the amount of training that could be done from these interviews is phenomenal. I would imagine all these trainee forensic psychologists, if people were aware of this case, I would imagine them being told, don't watch these interviews. I'd love to hear what John Matthias has to say. Now, I don't think he will say anything until arrests are made, but I really hope that down the track when arrests are made in this case, that Lauren and John do come and talk about this case, and that John does come and talk about it from the perspective of a forensic psychiatrist, because I think his insights would be absolutely phenomenal. He went into self-improvement in a big way after Jack and Lily went missing. He wants people to think that anyway. He went into defense mode. Yeah, I love listening to Lauren and John. I was horrified at all the bullying that happened against Lauren. I sat through that live stream where she basically laid it all out on the table, and that was after going through something like 9 months, 12 months of bullying. I'm glad that seems to have died down, but I did really feel for her at the time. And I know that the reason those people were bullying her was because she does do a brilliant job. She does a really brilliant job at what she does, and I think people feel threatened by her. I know there are a lot of noses out of joint after the Delphi trial because a lot of people were commenting on the fact that Lauren's presentation of the case was perhaps one of the few unbiased options in terms of finding out what was going on every day in court. So, you know, I feel for her. Hidden True Crime is the one channel that I still have a membership to because A, I like to support them, but B, I like when John does his kind of membership only speeches where he's digging a bit more into a case, but he's not comfortable putting it out in public because he is really intuitive and he just has so much to say. Oh my gosh, I've just done something to my screen. Can't see. Oh, right. Okay, sorry. Yeah, anyone who's not come across Hidden True Crime, definitely worth checking them out. They make a great team. I love Chris and Karen as well. John is a bit camera shy. That's the thing. John is an absolute genius. He would have to be the best forensic psychiatrist that I've seen online. But he's so self-conscious, and that's why they do it as members only a lot of the time. Chris and Karen, Interview Room, I love them as well. When they get together and pair up on Chris's lives, they're another dynamic duo. Daniel has two choices, and he's not going down without a fight. Yeah, that's the thing. He's fighting for his freedom. And he's hoping that Malaya will go down and not him, in my opinion. Oh, yeah, look, the number of times you could actually map it over the last 14 months with Daniel, where you look at an interview he's done, and you look at the comments that have been made by content creators after that interview. And then the next interview that he does, he's fixed it. So, early days, I remember I was talking about him masking a lot in terms of body language, and that it was almost unnatural how still he was when he was doing interviews. So what happens? All of a sudden we get the helicopter arms going in his next interview, and everybody noticed that. And everybody was commenting about the helicopter arms and kind of making fun of it. So you didn't see that again after that. Likewise, those early interviews when he was pretending to be crying, everybody jumped on it. We've not seen that since. Yeah. This is something that Daniel probably, he's out of his league. I said this, I think, in yesterday's live stream. I said this quite recently. Daniel, I believe, has, up until Lily and Jack went missing, been very good with his coercive control. Daniel, I believe, has, up until then, been able to convince people to see it his way. He's been able to control his partners. He's been able to control people around him. And what he's found now is that he's come out in public in those early days thinking that his strategies would work on everybody else, on the public, because it's worked in the small circle that he's been in his whole life. But he didn't realize that actually he's not as convincing as he thinks he is. And that not everyone is like Malaya. Not everyone is going to fall for his attempts to control the narrative. Not everyone's going to fall for the flipping it and trying to act the victim. Yeah. There's so much. This is the whole Darvo thing going. Yep. Many people have encountered abusive, narcissistic people. I've heard so many people in the last 13, 14 months say that they lived through a relationship like that and they recognised it straight away in Daniel. So and you find that because a lot of people that have gone through those sort of experiences tend to have so much more empathy that's come from having to survive. So that means that you get a lot of people that follow these true crime cases who have gone through things like this. And they follow these cases because they are so full of empathy. And so they feel the need to be a part of it and to see justice happening. So for someone like Daniel, that kind of sucks. Because he has a massive audience of people out there who've dealt with people like him and know exactly what to look for. So the tactics that have worked for him in the past, people just see straight through them. He's a chameleon, I'll give him that, because he has constantly changed his strategies over the past 13, 14 months. But the thing is, his language gives him away every time. And the things he does give him away every time. People had enough information from him in terms of body language, in terms of language, in terms of his reactions, the way he was talking about Malaya, to already know what the deal is with this guy. So every time now that he tries to do the chameleon thing and adapt, it's too late. Because people already know what they're looking at. Yes, I saw that, Fred. Massive drug bust. 6 people arrested around Westville, which is very interesting. That was, well, kind of sometime through the night for us, Bonza. I don't know, one of the times when Taka got me up because she needed to go outside, I went scrolling through Facebook briefly and there was something on there then. So, it's within the last 24 hours. Yeah, it's one of these bizarre things. I mean, he sees himself as a bit of a stud, but somehow there are still women that end up attracted to him. They haven't released any names. I think that was one of two. There might have been, wasn't there another bust or something? Yes. Not only did she plate her car, but if you remember, Belinda mentioned that Malaya made contact with her, I think, around Lily's birthday, so back in March, and had made a comment to Belinda along the lines of that she was hoping that to allow Belinda to get to see a bit of the children or something. So I think Malaya was making those moves to get out. But unfortunately, it was all too late. It goes back to, in my opinion, that first black eye that Jack got, whenever that was. Sounds like there was one in September before this December one. That's when she should have been making moves to get out. So, I mean, on one hand, yes, she was. It appears that she probably was planning on leaving. But she's still too little too late. No, Vodka's star witness was back briefly when he did a live stream a few days after that. But it's been pretty silent over there, which is good. Just reading people's comments. Well, I'm still leaning towards him having been on some sort of substance and basically losing the plot. In terms of revenge filicide, I would only see that in terms of not intentional, in terms of becoming so angry that it ended badly. The resentment. I do think there was substance abuse involved. I can't help thinking, when we hear things like Malaya saying that the clothing hadn't been unpacked since going to Paddy's on the Wednesday night, and that she claims to have put them in bed in their clothes or something like that, like it's just a normal thing. I can't help thinking that Malaya, at the very least, was getting into her shadow pens, if that is the truth. I do think that there was some sort of fight involved. I suspect that neither of them were clear-minded, clear-headed. Yeah, we know. There's no doubt about it. The way he talks, it seems undeniable. Look, one thing that I've avoided saying, I might have mentioned it once or twice, but it's not a road that I want to go down too often because it's not a good thought. But Malaya's lucky that she left that property alive, because clearly the situation in that household had escalated. Clearly there were anger issues going on. Yeah, I'd be very interested if you could email me some details on that, Women's Warrior. I think regardless, I think it was a dangerous time for Lily, for Jack and Malaya around then, because there were so many stresses. The finances were not good. There's the new baby, which always causes additional stress in a relationship, especially when there are children from a previous partner. So I think, and especially with Malaya getting her vehicle, that alone could have cost Malaya her life. I'm just going to be blunt. Because her getting a vehicle in a situation like that could be seen as her making moves to leave. So, you know, while I'm still not excusing Malaya, I am definitely acknowledging that things were going downhill with that relationship. And if it hadn't have been Lily and Jack at that point in time, down the track, it could have been Malaya or it could have been all three. It's a sobering thought. And maybe Malaya is lucky because she was looking after the baby. I do believe that up until the point when CPS took the baby, that he was using that as a way of controlling her, threatening her that basically she would lose the baby. But yeah, I do think the situation was probably escalating. Well, definitely escalating. And unfortunately, Lily and Jack were the ones that paid the price, in my opinion. Yeah. Cindy's not stupid. she, as a, no, she's not a registered nurse. She's the, I can never think of the terminology because it's different. But as someone who kind of works in that nursing profession kind of thing, she would have recognised the signs. I think LPN, thank you. Licensed practical nurse, is that correct? I don't know why I keep forgetting that. Licensed practical nurse means basically that she does all the practical stuff like changing bedpans and stuff like that. You know, helping people shower and stuff like that. That thing of him saying that he went to Paddy's house after he did the polygraph, that's disturbing behaviour. I'm just going to say that. That's really disturbing behaviour. I think they're going to try. How many delays have they had? I think they're probably going to try to push for more delays. I think they're going to push as much as they can until the judge turns around and says no more. Because that's usually how this kind of thing goes. Yeah, it was. It was witness intimidation, turning up at Paddy's just to let her know that he passed his polygraph exam. Because he knew that he couldn't go near Malaya. So instead he rocks up at an old lady's house to tell her that. It's seriously trying to control. His lawyer did say that this next date was to elect and plea. And that came directly from his lawyer. An LPN, a licensed practical nurse, is a step up from CNA. We don't have that in Australia, lower than a registered nurse. I think here in Australia there's only the one qualification now, but I'm not sure. And the sneaking up on Malaya to give mail, that he tries to play it down. He tries to make it sound very innocent. But all these things are classic abusive behaviours. Yeah. That's just the stuff we know about. I have no doubt that people are keeping an eye on Malaya for him. I have no doubt that he's making sure that messages get to Malaya somehow. I have no doubt that he's still trying to maintain control. Yeah. It's about the mind games. What he's basically trying to do is maintain control without being seen to be doing anything. And that's kind of disturbing. I mean, at least he's been told that he will be arrested if he goes onto the reserve. But, you know, people, when you have these sort of controlling relationships, you'd be surprised the lengths that they will go to maintain control. And that's something that I think we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. Yes, I think he is still in control. Now, I will say, and I've said this before, I also believe Malaya is a manipulative individual. But definitely, what he's doing here is definitely attempting to maintain control. Yep, you hear that so often. Someone's ex following them down the road to find out where they live. He did say that, actually. I think when she came out and did the search, I think he suddenly realised that he didn't have the control that he thought he had. That's why he came out and did these live streams. And I think he probably does feel that he's lost control, and he's doing his best to find a way to get control back. Wow, yours had his dad harass you in his place after he left. Yep. Yes, he said he never wants to see her again. There's a lot of resentment there. I think he's blaming her for all this. I think he somehow feels that it's her fault that this case is still getting the attention that it's getting. That's the way it comes across to me, anyway. Anyway, it's getting on a bit, and I think I need to go make some lunch. So I'm going to wrap it up here. So thank you so much for coming in. Good to see so many people coming in with so many valid things to say. I love the conversation that happens in the live streams here. So many good points that have been made. And I would love to sit here and continue talking, but yeah, I desperately need to go have some lunch, and I'm surprised that Mouse isn't pestering me to go out yet. He probably will. Maybe he's waiting for me to finish. Yes, Dawn, that final comment. He has others doing work for him to maintain control. Exactly. But every time he comes online, that's also him doing what he can to maintain control. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you for coming in. If you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button on the way out. That'll definitely get this moving in the algorithm. And if you are listening on replay, please leave a comment or several, because that also helps me get this out there. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.